What's up? What's happening? Welcome in on a Monday edition of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And yes, indeed, Anthony Haney is back. And I do believe when that open was made, Anthony, you were back from a trip to Miami.
I was.
Do you have any stories that need to stay on the boat?
Maybe.
Maybe
not.
Dog, you were styling, profiling the whole deal. I mean, you showed up, and all of a sudden, Anthony was the main character in a movie down there.
Something like that.
The linen,
yeah,
over the tank.
I'm not gonna lie though, Craig. The photographer, he came out of nowhere. I'm standing on the corner. I'm waiting for my friends because we had brunch.
You didn't know that there was a photographer.
No, I did not know. And then he tapped me on the shoulder. He was like, "Yo, you look good here." I said, "You took that?" And then he was like, "All right, walk across the street. I'm gonna make it even more fire." So that's the reel he made. I was like, "Yo, this
was a random dude. This wasn't a guy you were with. Y'all didn't have a photographer. This was just some random dude on the street in Miami
Pretty much.
who made you look like the main character in a movie.
Yes.
You just got that star power, bro.
Hey, look. I was where I needed to be, I guess.
I guess so. We'll unpack Anthony's weekend in Miami coming up later in the show. But we start with large men in football pads running into each other. And the most important thing here is that they were actually wearing football pads. The first padded practice today out in Ashburn. And it was a much shorter practice than I think a lot of us anticipated. Typically, the way training camp practices have worked in my experience covering the NFL is they get longer, and once they're kind of 2-hour practices, they are more or less 2-hour practices. But I have been so impressed with how the Commanders and Dan Quinn's staff, clearly influenced by a lot of sports science, have intelligently ramped up and still gotten a lot of work done. They practice at a very quick pace. They just always know where they're supposed to be. They move, they get there, they do their work. Players are constantly rotating in and out, so you're getting fresh reps from guys all over the place, and it's less. There's less also with the substituting that they do, less back and forth of, oh, we just ran a play. Terry's 50 yards down the field. We got to wait for Terry to get back. No, Terry ran 50 yards down the field, and now Terry's on the sideline out of the play. And by the time Terry gets back 20 yards closer to the line of scrimmage, we're saying set hut again with the new dude at receiver. That is a different way to practice that makes you far more efficient. And what they've done is they took 3 practices to start, 1, 2, 3 in a row, progressively longer. They went, get the adrenaline of fans going yesterday, another long unpadded practice, or longer unpadded practice. And then today they get out there in pads for the first time, and they cut the practice back down to, really the working part of practice was only about 60, 65 minutes. They had a couple of longer water breaks because it was hot today because they're smart and they know that that's the smart thing to do. If you want to go hard, you need to take the proper rest. And so, working time, it's 60 plus minutes, but really, 75-ish minutes again on the clock by, 9 o'clock practice, 10:15, they're blowing the final horn, and they went into essentially a cool down period to make the full practice about 85 minutes long. But because they're in pads for the first time, that's a smart way to go about it. And I'm very, very impressed with how they run things. And again, does this mean that they're going to win the Super Bowl? Absolutely not. But they are just giving themselves the best chance possible of being successful every single time they get out to practice and taking the most out of that practice because they're setting things up intelligently. As for what we actually saw, and I'd be curious if anybody was out there, what they saw as the fans were obviously in the building. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. If you were out at Commanders practice, what did you see or what questions do you have about what you did see? I think the big 2 takeaways that kind of go together that I've taken out of practice so far is Jaden just has a way about him that's really impressive in terms of the, how do I want to put this? The calmness with which he plays. There are times where he's today got to get to work and he's running out of the pocket and he's, I don't want to say flustered, but he is forced to create off schedule. And he's not flustered. And that's kind of the thing that's amazing is there are times where he gets that pressure and he understands where it's coming from and the route concept that they have. and he knows he's just got to buy a little bit of time. It's like, oh, okay, this blitz is coming, but I have this coverage. I have a plan for this coverage. I just need an extra second here to let the plan play out, and he'll fade back and then be able to deliver a strike. And they work on that stuff too. If you watch the individual periods, you see the off-schedule footwork, scramble-type drills that they work to make sure that if you have to make a throw fading backwards, something that 40 years ago in the NFL, they never would have worked on. It's like, no, they can't throw fading backwards. You have to find a way to get your feet set. And it's like, realistically, just get the ball out of your hands to the right place at the right time, and who cares how it gets there as long as the ball actually gets there. And so if you can do that off your back foot, especially with all these athletes now playing the quarterback position that can throw off platform, can throw from different arm angles, okay, well, now what if we practice that stuff? And you see it in the individual drills, and then you see it, or in the on-air drills, both of them, and then you see it once there's a defense out there, and Jaden just fades away and finds his guy, and you get a positive play out of something that, in older NFL offenses, and I'm not talking stuff like most of the league now, I'm talking 30 years ago, is probably a sack or a, hey, throw it into the dirt. Great play, man. It's like, what's better than throwing it in the dirt? A completion. Dirt's better than a sack, but how do you get that completion? And in conjunction with that skill that Jaden has shown is what Cliff has shown. And I am gaining day by day an appreciation, and I'm very curious once we get into the season, because I think my appreciation for this will grow once I can see it on tape. This is the hardest part of training camp, is like, I know y'all all want, like, hey, what concepts are they running? What cool stuff are they doing? It's like, I don't know. I was watching the left tackle take on the edge player. And then the ball came out, and I looked and see where the ball went, and the receiver looked to be pretty open. That's cool. So I don't have the details how yet. And if I did, I'm not saying I'm hiding stuff from y'all. But if I did, the PR staff would be very upset if we shared, because we're not allowed to share schematic stuff. And I will say one thing that is interesting on that front is the security at camp was much more on top of fans taking video during periods that were off to our cameras as media than I have ever seen before. Like, they were constantly on their radios, constantly walking up and down, telling, hey, you can't, no filming right now, because this has been a problem league-wide, is you have training camp, you want it to be in front of the fans, but then your whole offense gets out because fans are taking, even though the media is not taking video when they're not supposed to, fans are. Fans put out your plays, and it's like, oh, cool, our trick play that we were going to unleash in week 4 on whatever opponent is now out there, and they're going to be ready for it. Cool. And if you don't think that NFL teams have staffers scouring the internet for video of training camp, you don't know the NFL very well. They absolutely did. Hey, advanced scout, you don't have any film to watch yet besides stuff from last year. Make sure you're monitoring the internet today and creating a file or a folder with all of our future opponents' potential video that's out there. And if you see it, if you watch it, you see anything, like, we'll pull it that week. Hey, they were working on this in training camp. So the point, though, that I was going to make on Cliff is, it's very clear whatever he's doing is creating conflict for defense, where you have guys that are running wide open, and it is also creating very clear pictures for Jaden. And at times the other quarterbacks, Jaden, I think, just processes on a higher level, but it's like, hey, look here. If this guy's doing this thing, then go here. Or, whatever the coaching point is, hey, if you see this coverage, you identify this shell. If this guy is open, that also means this. Or just, hey, if this guy's open, this is what you're looking for. Throw it now. If he's covered, you need to move here. A more traditional linear read. Whatever the picture is, whatever the coaching point is that is allowing Jaden to consistently have a clear picture, Jaden never looks like he doesn't have a plan. And I think that's the ultimate, like, where those two things come together that is impressive so far in camp, is he hasn't really been that confused. And I would say, well, is that just the defense not running any confusing stuff yet? But I think it has happened to Mariota. It has happened to Driscoll. It has happened to Hartman, where they're double clutching and whatever. And Jaden has had a couple of snaps here and there where that stuff happens, but he then is able to, like, so quickly, I should say, get to the next thing that it doesn't matter. That's the separator. That's the thing that makes him special, is, like, he goes from screwed to unscrewed real quick. And that's before you even get to what he might do with his legs once that part of his game opens up in a real game, as the season goes, where we know he could run for 85-yard touchdowns in the SEC. And I saw something this weekend that he claimed he could have run in the 4.2s if he had run a 40. That seems preposterous. That's aggressive. That's all-time speed. And I know he's really fast. Do I think he would have run a 4.3 something? Maybe. But just that was a fun thing I saw this weekend. Yeah, I would have run a 4.25. Okay. Michael Vick ran a 4.33. But I have no doubt that he can run like 24 miles an hour or something like that. Something crazy fast. Something where other dudes in the SEC, where you had the best athletes on the planet playing football, couldn't catch him. So definitely excited to see that part of his game continue to blossom. Hasn't really unleashed a long one yet. Marcus has had a couple of pretty solid scrambles. Jaden had one scramble today, and you do see the speed. It wasn't that he got out, but he got maybe 4 or 5 yards where another quarterback would have been tackled at the line of scrimmage or never gotten the edge in the first place. More calls, reaction, everything, analysis from day one of training camp in pads. Next, still to come as well on the Hoffman Show, 4:30, Cam Edge, Maryland quarterback, joins us here on your home for Terps football. Logan and I break down practice today, take command at 5. I also talked to Frankie Luvu today. You'll hear that at 6:30, so we're loaded up on a Monday here on the Team 980. Again, paging all Turtles. Cam Edge, Maryland quarterback, is going to join us at 4:30 here on the Team 980. Terps opening up camp tomorrow, but today, outside of our chat with Cam and some talk about some of what's going on at the Olympics, we are focused on what is happening with the Commanders in Ashburn and their first day of padded practice. 301-230-0980 is our phone number if you'd like to get in. 301-230-0980. Questions, if you have been out to training camp either today or yesterday, your observations, more than welcome. Again, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Chet. Chet, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, I just wanted to get your take and follow up on your observation concerning the offense. Is it your impression that the intellect or the football IQ on the coaching staff is much higher on the offensive side of the ball as opposed to the defensive side of the ball?
No, definitely not. I just think that we're at a period of camp. One, we're still dealing with very, very small sample sizes. Two, I think that the defense is only installed so much. And because of that, if the offensive install is at a point where it's installed things to beat those coverages, the offense just naturally has the upper hand. Because the defense's job and the staff's job isn't to win training camp. It's to make sure that they have well-taught tools when you get to the regular season, and then the play calling becomes much more varied once you're against an actual opponent versus, okay, if I know that the defense is only installed quarters and man and cover three, and I've got a bunch of stuff that beats that, and that's what I've installed as an offensive coordinator, I better be winning consistently. And so I would assume, Chad, at some point this flips, and, they start, adding in blitzes and things like that where they haven't really done that stuff yet. And so I think that the offense is performing well. It's encouraging. And the defense has at times gotten some things, signals crossed, whatever. But it certainly is not indicative of any kind of larger picture.
Well, just to follow up on that, when do they get to the point, for example, when you have fellas on the defensive side of the ball and coach whispers in his ear, son, your livelihood is on the line, beat this lineman and have number 5 or whoever's back there breathing out his ear hole? Because like Doc says, pressure bursts pipes, and I don't think you can do any evaluation until you get pressure versus pipes. So this seems like window dressing to me.
I just think that's a very outdated way of thinking about football, if I'm being honest with Chet. Yes, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, pressure burst pipes, all that kind of stuff. But, you've got to make sure you can do the basics right. And I think this staff understands that. And we're still it's July. They don't play a game until September. They have an entire month. They have multiple joint practices. They have a lot of time to get to that kind of evaluation. And frankly, a lot of that evaluation will come in the joint practices. It'll come in training camp or in preseason games where things are truly unpredictable, where there's no script. And I think one thing that I've heard that DQ does is he does unscripted periods where he doesn't tell the players, or they don't tell the coaches, the players, there's a certain level. I think it depends on how they're doing it on that given day, where Dan's okay, we're doing this, ball in the 45, let's go. And he doesn't tell them that beforehand, or hey, red zone, unplanned red zone period. Cliff, you better have your play calls ready. So they'll get to those things situationally. But what winds up happening is if you try to do that stuff too early, whether it's hey, let's load up Jaden Daniels against a bunch of blitzes and see how he does and see how this O-line handles it, or let's try to, rig the game, if you will, schematically one way or the other for the sake of quote-unquote creating pressure, you haven't actually given the players the tools to solve that, and all you do is wind up practicing stuff that you're not going to do and creating bad habits. Versus if you install the solutions and then make them execute it, you're practicing the thing that you ultimately will use in the game. And yes, if you get to that point and those guys can't do it, well, then the evaluation is done. You've gotten your answers. But if you don't give people the tools they need to solve problems, as whether it's a boss in a business setting or a football coach in this setting, that's a reflection of you and not them. And I don't mean you, the caller, Chad. I mean that person. That would be a reflection of the coaches, not the players.
Yeah, I understand that. I think this seems to me there seems to be a place for this maybe in the off season, and then maybe you do some kind of wave loading with the pressure situations in camp where you just get to it and find out, is pressure going to burst pipes and, get these hungry dogs after it, because it almost seems like a touch football league we're evaluating. And then you watch the local news and you see these guys catching these great passes, but there's never any follow-up on the other side about, well, who was the defender on that play that got beat? It's always like they slanted to offensive production and offensive highlights.
No,
that's my impression.
yeah, no, Chad, I appreciate the call, and I think you raise a great point and a great discussion here, which is like camp is an off-season and really in-season. Certain drills are designed certain ways. Like there is, outside of like an 11-on-11 clock is running scrimmage, where we're just like, hey, we're going to put 5 minutes on the clock here, and, offense is trying to score, defense is trying to get a stop. Here's the score situation. Or it's a neutral score situation. Like we're practicing our first 15. Let's see what happens. Like every single non-11-on-11 drill, even 7-on-7, is skewed one way or the other. A 7-on-7 is skewed towards the offense. There's no pass rush. And so what you're working on is really important. Like, what are we working on in this drill? We're working on 9-on-7. Okay, well, now we got, a running situation. 7-on-7. Okay, we're working on the pass stuff. Are we in 2-minute? Are we in red zone? Are we on this? Are we on that? And your coverages and your plans and your pressures and all that kind of stuff. Because, they've done a lot of situational work. And if they are one of the better teams in the red zone this year, everyone's gonna call in and be like, I remember you talking in training camp about how much red zone they did, and clearly it paid off. And then someone will be like, why didn't Rivera ever do that? Because we just can't let stuff die, and that's how it goes. But I think that understanding that stuff is all a progression, and you have to build the basics, and you have to build down in, down out stuff. You have to build, in the red zone, there are certain pressure packages, and there has been, by the way. One of the touchdowns that Jaden threw on the first day of practice, I think it was, when we were out there. Yeah, I think when we were shoved in that corner on the far field because they decided to practice on field 2 that day. There was a blitz from Quan Martin, and Jaden read it and was able to get the ball out before. The line did a good job of picking it up, and that was one of their red zone pressure packages, an extra DB coming. There are different guys that have, there was a play today, I was watching Brandon Coleman, and I saw a stunt up front, and they're practicing some of this stuff in the individual drills and practicing some of this stuff in the on-air drills and whatever, but how much makes it into the 11-on-11 is a different story. And executing your basics down in, down out, I think it's important to remember, like, we are in the very earliest parts of camp still. Again, it is July 29th. So to get too far ahead of ourselves in terms of, oh, well, they don't have their whole defense in yet. They don't have all the answers on defense yet, or offensively, whatever. There's going to be 4 more swings of, oh, the defense is better, the offense is ahead, the defense is this. And we're not going to know jack, by the way, until they hit the joint practices. Because last year we thought the offense was way ahead and the offense was good, and we were basing that off of the defense being pretty good the year before. And it turns out, in hindsight, with the benefit of a full season, the reason that we thought Jahan Dotson was going to be an 1,100-yard receiver last August is because the defensive backfield was a disaster for Washington. And we didn't appreciate that at the time because they were coming off a year where they were pretty good, and they should have been ascending. First-round rookie, St. Juice had a really good year in 22, like all those things. And so because we don't know, we don't have that context yet, yes, it does look right now like the offense is a little ahead. Cliff is got good answers for whatever coverages Joe Witt Jr. has in. They're still playing hard. They're still playing fast. They're still playing physical. They're still around the ball. Like, they're still doing a lot of stuff that you really like. They just don't have the full solutions yet. And so that will come with time as Joe and his staff install more stuff and especially find small variations that they won't even work on that much in training camp. They'll have stuff that they tweak for the regular season. Oh, hey, this opponent likes to do this, so we're going to take our insert zone coverage here and we're going to slant it this way. Like, this stuff is really, really nuanced in the modern NFL. And, I've referenced this conversation a couple times since I listened to it last week, but when I heard Sean McVay on the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays and like hearing some of the stuff that these defensive coordinators are doing where they will tell a corner who's not involved in a play, like, hey, if you see the action going the other way, like, forget your responsibility. In part because we don't want to give away, like, if we're playing cover 4, like, we don't want them to see the picture that you get of the 4 dots in the back on Madden. Like, we want to make sure that it looks really cloudy and muddy And if you're, instead of being like, oh, I am the deep quarters player, so I have a fourth of the field deep when there's nobody that's threatening back there, just kind of run towards the action. Oh, everything's up here? Okay, let me just kind of jog into the play over here, and now all of a sudden it looks like a muddier picture versus, oh, wow, 4 guys went deep. It's quarters. I know the ball needs to go here. And so, again, this stuff gets tricked up. This stuff gets complicated. This stuff gets progressively installed. But it all starts off of basic fundamentals and rules, and that's where both sides of the ball are right now. And with that, those basics in place, you have basic offensive plays designed to beat basic coverages. The offense is starting basically every drill ahead. As that balance shifts and more defense gets installed, and it perhaps gets a little more complicated, a little more nuanced, that's when the defense will catch up, and obviously some pressure packages will be a part of that. And we'll see how the offense handles that. Both Cliff as a play caller, Jaden as a quarterback, and guys like Jahan who at times have struggled with some of the pressure packages and man coverage and beating press and things like that in the past. More on practice coming up at 5 o'clock. Logan Paulson and I, fresh edition of Take Command. You haven't heard it yet because we recorded it a couple hours ago, and it's not been released. But we're going to play a little bit of me and Logan talking about practice today here on the radio. But next, Maryland quarterback Cam Edge joins us on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live on the free Odyssey app as well. And, of course, we are your home for University of Maryland football. They are reporting to camp and getting going this week. And quarterback Cam Etch, of course, last seen in football pads, throwing a touchdown in the Music City Bowl last year, is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Cam, appreciate your time, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So, I mean, what's a summer like for a college football player these days? You know, you guys have all the camps, you guys got stuff you got to do, and then you got plenty of time off as well. Do anything fun, like mostly training? What's the summer like for you?
It says definitely mostly training. I'd say that takes up about 80% of it. And then for me, I'm kind of a more boring guy really at home. I'm from Delaware, so it's easy to get back home. I like coming back to seeing my friends. I got some friends at other colleges playing ball too, so seeing them when I can on the weekends and, you know, kind of just resting now these last couple of days before camp. So just really just training and being around family and friends, you know what I mean, hanging out, getting ready for the season.
Yeah, sounds like a great summer. We know you're going to be in a quarterback competition there for Coach Locks. What are the things that, as you left last season, you wanted to work on and spent most of your time training on this offseason?
For me, it was just really improving my body and getting a little bit quicker and really, I think kind of getting rid of some weight kind of helped show that a little bit more because I've always been an athletic guy, like played baseball, played shortstop, center field when I didn't pitch, so that tells you a lot there. And played basketball growing up, played all three sports, so just showing that to people more because everyone knows I throw the ball pretty well, but sometimes people don't really see the athletic side of things, even though it's there, you know what I mean, being a young guy, they haven't seen as much, so that's really all it's been, and I've done a good job of that. Lost probably about 15 pounds so far, and we all know during camp you'll probably lose a little bit more being in pads and being so hot, but that's what I've focused on, and I think it just went extremely well, and I think people are going to see that soon enough, and that's not really as bad as people think it is in the first place.
Yeah, what are the things that you're doing there? I mean, diet and kind of how you train obviously is the big thing, but like let's go into it a little bit. Who are you working with and what are like the most important things that you had to nail every single day to achieve the goals that you set out to on those fronts?
Yeah, we have a great strength staff at University of Maryland. Say Coach RD, Coach Wood, all those guys. I've had great relationships with them, so I have so much faith and trust in them that when I go in, I know they have a plan made for me and all the guys that all I got to do is come in and work hard. You know what I mean? We have a great dietitian in Lauren who's put a plan together for me, and that's probably been the biggest thing when it comes to changing your body. You know what I mean? Diet and sleep are very important. And then during the month of May, when we were off, I worked with Bobby Sports PT in Hanover, Maryland. Really good job working more explosive and stuff like that. And it got me to a point where now I could dunk pretty easily, you know what I mean, losing some weight. And I was always doing it when I was younger, playing basketball more, but now like to do it as a football guy and, you know, not playing basketball a whole lot, that was really good to see. And it's like, it was really easy to do. So running really good times and stuff like that. And those were people I really work with, and they're great people to have around. And so I can't think of enough. It really helped me out.
Cam Etch, quarterback at Maryland's with us here on your home for Terps football, the Team 980. I know typically dietitians will either be like, all right, we got to add something. And most time it's like protein, or we, you know, hey, all right, I see you. You're a candy kid. We're gonna have to cut some of that back. Were you an add guy, or you were a subtract guy for the dietitian part of it?
I was actually, and this sounds weird, to lose weight, I actually was an add guy.
Yep.
So like some people, and it really kind of shook me up. She told me I wasn't eating enough. Like I thought you eat 3 meals, veggies, a little bit of rice, chicken, stuff like that. But I wasn't eating the snacks and like meals in between. So now, like even now, I got a Core Power protein shake here. I just had it for this. So
yeah.
That Greek yogurt, I'd never had Greek yogurt before in my life. So that was something, and so it was really nice. It was actually kind of easy. I enjoy it. Grocery shop now a little bit and make my own food, so it's been nice.
That's cool. Yeah, no, it's that does trip people up, but it's a huge thing. Just got to make sure you get the right ratios right, and that's why one thing I learned: nutritionist, you can get an online program for that. Dietitian, you got to go to a lot of schools. Those dietitians are very, very smart.
Right.
Again, Cam S here on the Hoffman Show. Every time I've had the chance to talk to Locks, I'm just blown away by the guy. He's so smart. He's got such a great personality. You're like, you were built to be a college football coach, both because you're great at coaching the football, but the personality, like who wouldn't want to play for that guy? So what's it like to actually be a quarterback in a Mike Locksley program?
I'd say it's somebody, everyone in the room gets a lot of information, and that's a good thing. You know what I mean? If you're really a true quarterback, you want as much information on your plate as possible because that's the answers to the test. We always say you got to rehearse the show, and if you have every answer to it, you're prepared when the time comes. And that's what I'd say about that room. When we go in there, we learn a lot. You know what I mean? We have good times as well. Like Coach Locke said, sometimes like you got to teach something and kind of joke around a little bit to kind of get yourself back locked in, because if you just go at it all day, sometimes you can lose some things. You know what I mean? So we have a good time, but at the end of the day, we learn a lot in that room, and I'd say that's the big thing for me.
How many? I'm so curious because like covering the Commanders like we do as well. They've built this ridiculous staff where they have so many guys coaching wise in that quarterback room. What's it look like for you guys these days? Like how many different coaches are contributing to that room for you?
For us, we have like our OC still is in the picture. Like we talk to him a lot, but we have Coach Locks, and then we have our young GA and Eric Nigerian, who actually we got to play with, was a teammate of ours who one day
That's cool.
he's going to be really, really good as a coach. Like he does a really good job now, and I think he's going to be a household name very soon. And really appreciate him. I know as a young GA, there's probably a lot of things where like you're going through the grind every day trying to be a coach, but I hope he knows that he's going to be really good one day, and we appreciate him a lot.
College football, because there's 100 guys on the roster, like a lot of positions, a lot of coaches or a lot of players don't get to know their head coach. What's it like having him in the room every day? Because imagine on one hand, it's probably nerve-wracking. On the other hand, it's probably awesome.
Like I said, it's really awesome because at the end of the day, you see it through the person that runs it. You know what I mean? And you can see things with different lens, but we as the quarterback see it through the guy who runs the whole his candy store, as people would say. You know what I mean? So you have to. That's a good to see. You know what's happening and stuff like that, and you know what you need to know. And like I said, he has so much experience with offensive football and quarterbacks and stuff like that. Like obviously with Jalen, Tua, and Mac and Talia, like he's seen it from many different ends of the spectrum. So at the end of the day, like I said, we get every answer to the test we need. You know what I mean? That's what you want as a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. Who are some of the guys that I don't say model your game after because that's like too direct, but that you take inspiration from, the guys that you really enjoy watching, and why is it that you enjoy watching them?
Me? You probably won't like to hear this one. I'm a Dak guy, so I love watching Dak.
Hey, look, I have a lot of respect. Like I cover the Commanders for sure, and I'm sure a lot of people listening won't like to hear that. I understand who Dak is as a quarterback. That's a great answer. He's awesome.
Jordan Love guy, especially after the playoff game. I got to watch him do us in pretty bad, so it was kind of fun watching him do that from a quarterback standpoint. But so guys like that, those are fun to watch. And even I love seeing young guys come in, and like C.J. Stroud, like watching him. I got to watch him play in person as a freshman at Maryland. And I'd probably say he's probably the best player I've seen play in person, like as a quarterback for sure. Like it's every ball, even the ones that were incomplete, were in the right spot. You know what I mean? So I'm a big fan of all quarterback play at the end of the day, but those are kind of guys I like to watch the most and try to model my game after, honestly.
When you watch a guy like Jordan, and I think Jordan's so interesting because obviously he was in the room with Aaron, influence of the very unique footwork that seems to be passed down in that Green Bay tree. Like, do you ever like try that stuff, or you're just like, I'm gonna do it how they teach it here, the more traditional ways, and kind of that, or is there other parts maybe that you can take out of what he does?
There's definitely
that then translates to the way you
from,
do
like,
it.
the Green Bay tree that sticks out the most to me when you watch all of them in a row and they look very similar is they just play completely free. They're not sticking to like, well, do it this way, do it that way, and be how they want it to be. And I think that's kind of something you got to take and put it in your own way. And like when you throw around with your friends, like, yeah, try to throw it like Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. Sometimes what you find out is when you don't worry about every mechanic and you kind of just let it flow a little bit, you throw it 10 times better because you're not worried about the outcome of it. So that's kind of where I take a lot from Jordan Love, and I think it's actually really, really fun to watch him do that.
Yeah, no doubt. Last thing I want to talk about with you, Cam, is Cam Edge, quarterback from Maryland, is with us here on the Hoffman Show. There's all the hullabaloo, and especially in this world, in the talk radio world, about NIL, and everyone's trying to figure it out. You're an athlete who's living it. What's it like to be an athlete in college, especially at the quarterback position in 2024, where you are getting some of this NIL attention?
It's not why you play football at the end of the day. You know what I mean? You play football for the love of the game and stuff like that, and my main focus is still training and being the best version of me. But it's fun when you get to like partner up with certain, like the Michael Strahan brand. I didn't get to watch him play, but my dad talks about how good a player he was, and got to put some of his suits on and stuff like that and rep that brand. And even like the apartments in College Park at Tempo, I'm working with them now. So it's some really cool stuff. So people, there's some negative to it, and I mean, but me personally, I've had a lot of great people working with me and helping me out in the journey. So it's been really nice and just a lot of fun opportunities for me, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Cam, this was great, dude. I really enjoyed talking ball with you, and hopefully we get a chance to do it again during the season. Best of luck as you get going with camp, and we'll talk to you down the line.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it.
This is the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Coming up at 5 o'clock, we got the some more reaction from training camp. Me, Logan, take command. You know how that goes. I'm fighting with 3 computers right now, Anthony. I feel like a superhero. I'm like, pow, 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 pow.
Hey, look, not a lot of people can do what you do, man.
I'm skilled over here. I don't know what to tell you. People try to undermine me. People try to take me down.
Yeah.
I'm over here fighting 3 computers. What's up?
You do have 4 over there as well, though.
I do. I mean, I could. I don't even got to fight with this one. This one, I'll just show it. Show it generally who's boss. I mean, I'll just be like, what's up?
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
It's this one over here that's being a challenge right now.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We got it under control. Speaking of under control, or perhaps not under control, how out of control was your weekend?
It was pretty much in control.
Pretty much in control, he says.
Yeah. I think I lost my voice a little bit. I'm struggling over here. This morning I did drink tea, but I didn't.
Hold on. Did you have caffeinated tea? Because you don't drink caffeine.
No, I had some citrus green tea.
Okay, but it was a non-caffeinated tea.
Yeah.
Or decaffeinated tea.
Yeah. That didn't really help too much, but the weekend as a whole was like great. Again, I was in Miami celebrating 2 of my friends. They're getting married in September and October. So they had their bachelor's parties down there.
Oh yeah, the more you talk, the more I can hear it. The more I can hear the rasp to your voice.
Yeah.
The more that says, I was at a double bachelor party in Miami having a great time.
Yeah, it was a good time. I think the biggest takeaway from the trip in general was that we learned that one of our friends could not swim. And he almost drowned in the kiddie pool.
The kiddie pool?
Greg.
All you got to do is stand up.
I wouldn't make this up, Greg. I would not.
No, it's way too stupid to make up. Hold on. We can leave his name out of it. We don't need to embarrass him on the radio for all of his friends. You can definitely cut up this segment and send it to your group chat later.
Yes.
I will even upload it to a private YouTube link if you want to. It's something. Like, we'll figure out how to make sure that this gets... I want the story of how a grown man who could stand up if it's a kiddie pool, right? How deep is this pool? Like a 1 foot, 2 foot, or is it like at least a 4 foot?
Maybe 3, 4, to be honest. Like,
okay,
I'm
so a
standing
legit
up.
kiddie pool. It's at like your ankles, your knees.
It's probably like, somewhere here.
Oh, okay, so at least it was hip high.
Yeah.
But still, you can stand up. Okay,
Yeah.
how did a grown man almost drown in the kiddie pool?
So if you look at the pool that we had, we were sort of kind of trying to see if we could swim. Like, we were trying to lay out and really get like some swimming in to race, to be honest. But
Of course.
we were struggling a little bit. And this guy, my guy, I'm going to say his name because, Anesu, we have been trying to get this guy to show us that he's capable of swimming. We had been on a boat the day before, and he didn't want to jump into the water. So we were like, something's off about this guy right here. And we're finally in the pool where everybody is like swimming. We had another friend. He actually beat the allegations. He showed us that he could swim. He dared to be great, jumped in the water with no life vest.
Dared to be great.
It was a good scene, But this other guy, Nesu, he just refused. So we was like, all right, Ness, show us you can swim. And he tries to lay out, and he starts, hold on, time. He starts swimming, right? I want to say he takes like 3, I don't know.
Attempts at a freestyle?
Yeah, 3 attempts at a freestyle. And then he stops like halfway. And then he starts like doggy paddling because like he couldn't, I guess, swim. And then he ended up just standing up just because he started like freaking out a little bit.
It was the feeling like you're drowning is terrible.
Yeah.
I've had it distinctly that I can remember one time in my life. Like, we were younger and like my little sister was like on my shoulders.
Yeah.
In the pool, like chicken fight style, but all of a sudden I was underneath and I couldn't get off, and that feeling of gasping for air is not very fun. But it's one thing when you have like another human on top of you keeping you down, or someone pushing you into the water, whatever. When you just have to stand up, you are in more control of the situation.
Yeah, it was a little concerning. that he struggled to do that. But yeah, biggest takeaway: Nesu cannot swim.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Rough weekend for Ness, bro. I will save him here. He's in good company.
yes.
I don't know if you saw this weekend after the opening ceremonies, but Asia Wilson tweeted out that she got some tips from a professional diver, or for one of the divers on Team USA.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, now I just got to learn how to swim.
Oh, wow.
So Asia apparently not super fond of the water either.
Mm.
But Simone Manuel from the U.S. swim team has offered Asia a swim lesson after the Olympics.
We love that.
Yeah.
We love that.
They're just helping each other out.
Yeah.
Simone's probably like, I got to get some shooting lessons too. I gotta get some ball handling, some, I don't know, destroy people, grab every rebound, whatever, block every shot, be the best player in the world lessons from Asia Wilson.
Yeah.
She's the only one that can provide them.
Yeah.
It's the nature of being the best player in the world.
Can you swim?
Yeah.
Just had to, ask.
Yeah. No, like, am I an elite swimmer? No.
Oh.
And I will say, like, my cousins swam in high school, and I remember one time being in a pool and, like, swimming next to them. And they, like, again, they were great high school swimmers and, like, could have competed for Team USA. Like, I know you're just asking, like, baseline, are you going to drown? No.
Yeah.
But in the spirit of the Olympics, I was swimming next to my cousin one time in a pool. Like, we were on vacation in Florida, and I was just like, this is a joke. How does he move that fast through the water? Like, you realize that, like, can you swim? Yeah, I'm not going to drown. I could even do a fake, well, let's say, call it 3 of the 4 strokes. My fake butterfly would be very, very fake. But, like, you can do a fake breaststroke. You can do a fake freestyle. You can do a fake backstroke, whatever. Fine. But, oh, my God, the difference in performance from, like, a average jamoke who can swim and be fine not drowning to even hey, I swam when I was a kid and, like, got some lessons on how to go fast.
Yeah.
Nuts. Nevertheless, whatever these goobers in the Olympics are doing. And by goobers, I mean incredibly impressive world champions. We will talk more about the Olympics. We'll get specifically heavier into USA men's basketball, the decision to not play Jason Tatum, and how that worked out just fine for Team USA. Coming up at 5:30, we'll do the rest of the weekend in the Olympics, including a couple thoughts on the opening ceremony at 5:45. But next, by the way, I should also mention Frankie Luvu, 6:30. Frankie Luvu, 6:30 here on the show. But next, Logan and I breaking down what happened at camp today. We'll run through some of the biggest names from Jaden Daniels to Jamin Davis. Next on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We are live on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Talking about the U.S. Olympic basketball team on the men's side coming up at 5:30. Women, a big win today. Men back at it later this week. We'll get into some of the other Olympic action coming up at 5:45 as well. Our pick six at 6. The 6 most important training camp storylines of the day coming up at 6 o'clock, followed by my chat post-practice with Frankie Luvu at 6:30. But right now, you know what time it is.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Today, you get me and the big fella because, well, the whole point is people who were there. And, well, we were there. Logan and I at the first padded practice. And we talked quite a bit about a number of subjects and then eventually got to what you are about to hear, which is Jaden Daniels and others, the actual player reports, if you will. So without further ado, a little take command for you on a Monday on the Hoffman Show. All right, let's get into a couple of players. I want to ask you about a couple of guys because it's so hard to see kind of how different guys are doing unless the ball goes their way or unless you happen to watch them on, specific route or whatever. But a couple of guys that I think are worth talking about. One, obviously, is Jaden Daniels, and that will wind up hitting on some of the offense, other offensive guys, I'm sure. But anything that stood out for Jaden with the pads on, because there was a couple of muddy pockets today. Like there was some times where he had to move a little bit, had to adjust. There's guys around his feet. Like that hasn't happened yet. How do you think he handled it, and what did you see from Daniels on day one of pads?
I was pretty impressed. It's hard to tell, not having the clicker, like what the pocket actually looks like, because that's when you make some of those decisions. But there was a couple where I was like, man, I love how quick he is in the pocket, how decisive he is. And he's not ever really looking to run, which is such a interesting contrast to like Marcus Mariota, who is always... It's like I'm a little frenetic. I'm pulling the ball to run, and he's had some really nice scrambles. So I'm not saying that like that's a bad thing. It's just different. It's a different philosophy of playing the position, and I think that's been really cool. And again, like with pads on, throwing windows are tighter. Like today, for example, they're in this kind of like flat contour defensively. Looks like they're bringing some type of pressure, man coverage, and Jaden does a great job of identifying his matchup, losing a little ground in the pocket, and throwing the ball on time to Zach. There's a little bit of tug by the receiver or by the DB, which is Jeremy Chin. Not egregious, but it's a tug, and it's incomplete. But I love, again, that he understood that he was getting pressure. He understood that he's getting man. He fell away in the pocket the right way, bought enough time to give Zach an opportunity to win. And again, I think maybe this is my tight end bias, I think Zach won, right? And I think it's, defenses are holding bastards, but that's fine. And... but all of those things check boxes. I know what we're doing. I know where the ball should go. I've identified my matchup, and I know how to get the ball there. And minus the tug, it's probably a completion. So I love that. I love that about him, and I love the red zone period. I thought he just knew. Again, like Cliff did a good job of kind of bouncing into some really subtle formational things that we can't talk about too detailed on the podcast, but they were designed to affect the defense in a very specific way. And you could tell Jaden knew what they were trying to affect and where the ball should go. And I love that because he's not holding the ball a long time, which is awesome. So yeah. Love those little wrinkles, love that little pixie dust. But I think the more telling thing out of that is that the quarterback understands what the result should be. And I think that's pretty cool. And there's just it's kind of a constant thing with him. Like every time you think he's going to get tripped up by something, he just kind of meets the challenge, which is pretty cool. And I think today with the pads on, like you were saying, with some of those muddy pockets, with some of those difficult looks, I thought, again, the foot speed in the pocket, the understanding, the anticipation was all there.
Yeah. So on that front, like two things on Jaden and Cliff. I'll start with the Cliff thing because we're here. One thing you hear a lot around the league is like, can the quarterback get a clear picture? And I think what you just described is Cliff's ability to do that for his quarterbacks, because Cliff's got a great reputation for being able to do that. Of like, he gives the quarterbacks a very clean picture with clean reads, and I think part of that is knowing exactly what you're looking at. And I think back to our interview a couple, 2 years ago now or whatever it was, maybe it was before last year with Matt Ryan, where Matt talked about how as his career went and defenses shifted and changed, like those pictures became muddier and muddier, but he eventually found ways to like look in the right place and understand, okay, I don't need to know what coverage it is. I just need to know where that guy is. And I feel like what you're describing is Cliff having an ability to, with formation, with personnel, with whatever it is, in this case, formation, to clear up that picture a little bit and be like, hey, man, I don't really care what coverage they're in. I just need you to know where this guy is. And if he goes there, you throw there. And if he goes here, you throw there. And if you can get that clarity for a quarterback and get to your quarterback in the meeting room this is the clarity that you are looking for, which is two different things, right? It's one thing to create it schematically, like win with the pen. It's another to translate that knowledge of exactly what to look for to the players. And I think at times we've seen that. I think we've seen, some games in the last couple of years where we've gone back and watched the tape, and, you'll point out something to me on a specific play, and you'll be like, EB did a great job of getting this guy open, or Scott did a great job of getting this guy open. And we're going, what's the quarterback looking at? And so the same pageness of, hey, quarterback, one, you're getting the look. Two, quarterback is looking for that thing with regularity, speaks to both Cliff's ability to do that and Jaden's ability to take in that information and ultimately use it.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right, and it's still early in training camp, obviously, and we're still early with Jaden, and we don't know where the defense is in terms of install. We don't know where Cliff is in terms of install. We don't really know what Cliff's motivation is with regards to install. But all those things you just said, I think, are 100% true. It's like this is the kind of window dressing, and there's something very, I guess, like what I would associate like with the West Coast offense, this nuance of formation that you didn't see necessarily. Again, you don't see it in college from Cliff. You saw it a little bit in Arizona, but to see it in practice, you're like, man, this guy gets football. Like there was a touchdown to McNichols the other day, and there was like, it wasn't anything complicated, but basically like the defense didn't pass it off correctly and the back's wide open. I'm like, that's great. And it's all it is a little bit of emotion, gets them in a formation. They're not exactly sure who's got who, and they lose the back. And like, that's all it is. And so I've been really pleased with that element of it. I've been pleased with where they're at with that. And hopefully that continues. And hopefully every single week they just keep building off of that. And it's awesome that they can do that because the quarterback's showing, like to your point, that he understands and that he's smart enough to handle it. And I know we've been talking a lot about Jaden, but there's been times where I'm like, hey, that's good job by Marcus Mariota or Sam Hartman, understanding the same principle. Jeff Driscoll, I think, made a play today that was pretty impressive. Same type of thing. And, those latter two guys, Sam Hartman and Jeff Driscoll, are dealing with worse offensive lines. So that becomes a little bit messy for them. But I think on the whole, like, however Cliff has chosen to teach it, however Johnson has kind of supported him in terms of teaching, Tavita, like, one of the things we were wondering about is like, how do they put a scaffolding around the quarterback position? And so far, again, it's only been 6 practices. It seems like they've done a great job of building that scaffolding for that position group.
Yeah, in red zone today, there's like a couple of wide open touchdowns, and
like
that
wide open
speaks
like
to
silly wide open.
Yeah, like obviously Joe Witt Jr. is going to be like, that's us messing up, but it tells you the conflict that the defense is in, and hopefully Joe and his staff can get that cleaned up for on the defensive side. That's the positive and the negative. The double-edged sort of training camp is like, oh man, great job offense, way to go Cliff, love this. Oh crap, the defense is having trouble with it. Like that's just kind of how it goes.
And
but Cliff did it frequently enough that you're like, man, Cliff's clearly, I don't know what it is. You clearly have a better idea of it. I'm watching at it, just, you want to, whether it's because I don't know what it is, period. Even if you showed me the tape, I don't know the names of the concepts, whatever. But also times like you're watching the O-line, all of a sudden a dude's just wide open and you're like, well, it seems to have accomplished what it was supposed to do.
Yeah. And to be fair, like, they've done, the offense is putting some stuff in that you're like, I understand why this is challenging. It's designed to stress defenses in man-to-man coverage, right? And it's designed to have answers versus certain zone coverages. And if that's all the defense has in at the moment, then that's going to favor the offense.
Right.
So again, like training camp has ebbs and flows. 3 days from now, I bet you the defense is ahead of the curve and you're like, what the heck's wrong with the offense? Like, that's just how it's going to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are going to catch up with install-wise. They're going to start matching concepts better. And the defense is going to look like awesome. And that's happened in every single training camp I've been a part of. I will also say that I've been super impressed defensively with how confident those guys are playing in the back end. Like I know they've had some miscues or whatever in the low red, especially like, I will say this as an offensive coordinator, like at the high school level, so obviously not in the same vein as them. If you're going to play man-to-man in the red zone, like as a coordinator, I know that I should win. And so Cliff Kingsbury did win, and that's important. But in the other stuff, I think those guys in the back end have done a great job of communicating and playing fast. So credit to Joe Witt Jr. But like you said, I think coming out of today, like specifically in that red zone period, you're like, ooh, this is good, and it's good stuff. So
yeah. Best play of the day, just random shout out real quick before we get on to some of the other guys. Sam Hartman had a ball and not in the red zone in 11s where he just ripped one to Jamison Crowder on the sideline. That was ridiculous. Like, escaped the rush, rolled out, like, had to be perfect, was perfect. So salute, shout out to Sam Hartman. Good job on that one. Other things to talk about, other guys to talk about. John Dotson. I was asked about him this morning when I was on with the Junkies, and I feel like he's had a bit of a quiet camp so far, production-wise. What have you seen from him when you've watched him, though? Like, is this just an odd stretch where the ball is going somewhere else? Like, is he not doing things he needs to do? Like, what have we seen from Jahan Dotson so far?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question because, like, you know, when I'm watching, I'm kind of doing multiple things. I'm watching the concept, so I'm trying to figure out who's in. Or watching formation, figure out who's in, where they're lined up, and watching concept. And so I will say I haven't really been focused on Jahan in that way. But like, it kind of goes back to that thing we were talking about before, like when you're evaluating people at camp, like, are they making plays? And he's been kind of quiet. So I don't know how much he's been in. You know what I'm saying? Which, again, like, that might be a decision from the staff. Like, I would imagine that, you know, that those comments about, oh, I wish I would have had a few more plays are coming from older players, more veteran players. Because I will say, Dan, at least in my experience, knows how to kind of say, this is going to be our team, the nucleus of our team. These guys, we know what they are. We understand they need reps, but, like, when do they need reps? Who is it more important that gets reps? The guys we don't know about or the guys we do know about? And so I think that that's also playing into this. Like, it'd be really interesting to go back, if we could, and tally reps for Jahan and Terry and, you know, whoever else, Luke McCaffrey or B-Rob, for example. And I'm sure you'd be like, man, they're actually not getting that many reps or as many reps as, like, Bryson Tremaine or somebody like that.
For sure. They're way more even than in the past. Like, traditionally, we've talked about this already in this podcast. Like, the first teamers would get like 8 reps, second teamers would get like 6 reps, and then the third teamers would get 4 reps if there was time left on the clock. This year, it's like 2 reps rotate, 2 reps rotate, 2 reps rotate. And as the drill goes, those top line guys don't necessarily rotate back in as frequently. And so you might get 2 and then 2, and then you're out, where Tremaine might get 2, 2, 1 out, 1 out, 1 out. And like, a guy like Tremaine winds up getting more reps than a guy like Terry.
Yeah, because that's the thing I was going to say, like Bryson Tremaine, Kazmir Allen, you know, name your receiver. Even OZ has a big but those 2 guys in particular, I feel like they're in almost every play. And I think part of it is because Bryson Tremaine is playing X, Z, F, and sometimes he's playing the Y in 4 wide receiver sets. So he's in, especially when they get out of that first group, like, a lot. Kazmir Allen's in there a lot. And so again, like, Jahan hasn't been super noticeable. But I think part of that is just because, like, are those guys playing that much? It doesn't feel like it at the moment. And that seems like a conscious decision.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other guy that I'm surprised has been a little quiet because he had a louder spring is Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, I was about to say. He kind of falls in that same bucket for me, too. It's the same thing with a couple of those guys. Like, you know, like Luke was a guy I was expecting to have a great, not that he's having a bad training camp, but a louder training camp. You know, Dominique Hamilton, is that right?
Hampton,
safety.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Dominique Hampton, like, I thought he'd be louder. Mike Sanders I thought would be louder. But again, that doesn't mean they're playing badly. It just means that they haven't flashed the same way. And the rotation might be different now, you know, like with some of these guys. So, again, it's hard to kind of keep track of everybody because, like, I've been watching Brandon Coleman. I've been watching Ben Sinnott. I've been watching Tyler Owens on defense because he's a guy that's caught my eye quite a bit. And so your eye tends to gravitate towards, I like watching Bryson Tremaine. I think he does a great job. So my eye tends to gravitate towards those players. That doesn't mean that those other guys are having bad camps. I just don't have enough file on it to give you like the listener an accurate commentary on where exactly they're at.
Right, and that's how I feel as well, and that's why I was like, am I missing something? But that has been kind of the interesting thing about a guy like Dotson is like Terry has been more involved, even though their reps are probably pretty similar, because there does seem to be a concerted effort when he's in to get him the ball.
Right.
And, you know, we talked about that late last week, especially with Marcus, where there was like that one drive where he just force-fed Terry the ball, like 5 straight plays on Emmanuel Forbes, and Forbes did a good job on most of them, but Terry got a deep on him one time. And had another catch, I think, in that sequence as well. But with Jahan, there just hasn't been that same thing, and he's not getting a ton of reps. And so ultimately the result is a fairly quiet camp, and I just think that's interesting and something to watch as this shifts, because there will be parts of this camp that are let's get ready for the season. There'll be parts of this camp that are like let's get ready for the preseason games, because to your point, if Dan understands like who his main guys are and just wants them to get ready for the season, part of the evaluation process is the preseason games. Like that's actually a huge deal. How do you actually play football? Right. And so you want to make sure that you've prepared these end of roster guys for those games. That way they can go out and put forth their best effort, and you're evaluating them based off that, not based off your own failures to prepare them.
Yeah, I mean, when I was with Dan in Atlanta, like one of the things that really stuck out to me was this idea that he knew the roster really well. He had it established from the jump. And so like in the third preseason game, if he knew you were going to make the team, and I think this was also him and Dimitrov like working through some stuff, you didn't play. So they'd walk out there with like, how many guys on the roster? Like 40 guys, and they were like, good luck, you're playing the whole time. If you were like, I was the second string tight end, third string tight end. I didn't dress my first year there. So they
You're
obviously
pissed too, because that's your All-Star game.
That's my All-Star
game.
That. That's the first time I haven't dressed in my whole career for that game. Was that season? I was just like, whoa, this is pretty cool. Like, not to be stressed out and have to worry about this, but it does show, I think. And Sean McVay started doing this in LA. There's a lot of coaches that are moving to this model. It's like, we know who our guys are. Let's make sure it's not about who's ready for training camp or preseason or joint practice. It's about who's ready for week one. So I do think that that's been a big shift across the league. Now, there are still some old school mentalities there, but I do think that that's something to keep an eye on with this group, is how are they going to handle that? How are they going to handle the workload going into season? And do they ever ramp those guys up at any point and say, hey, 1v1s, let's go get it. And maybe they save that day for a joint practice or whatever it is. So, again, when you're looking at practice structure for this team, I think it's informative of the depth chart, informative of philosophy, and it's going to be really interesting to kind of keep an eye on that moving forward.
For sure. You mentioned Tyler Owens. I thought one of the most interesting moments of practice today involved him. Kaz Allen bobbled a ball, and Owens was right there. Ball kind of pops up. Allen's able to catch it. And then Joe Witt Jr. comes right up to Owens as the play is ending, and it's just like, you got to catch that ball, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and I just thought, we hear about the emphasizing of turnovers and the details and all this stuff. And we talked last week about some of the different ways that this staff does it compared to other staffs that claim to do it. But I thought that was a tremendous example of like, when Joe Witt says he's serious about the ball, if you squander an opportunity, he is going to make sure you know that was an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it also does a couple of things, that little interaction. One, I think it shows you the type of camp Tyler Owens is having so far. He's a big guy. He's fast to the football. He's been more instinctive than his college film showed. But then I think so Joe Witt's going to coach him up and be like, hey, man, let's make sure that ball comes out. But also, I think, to your point, it speaks to like people talk about we're about the ball, but like that is how you become about the ball. Every opportunity you have when the ball is in the air, when it's a 50-50 ball, you emphasize why that's important. And I think the eagerness, the zest that he showed coming up to him, I wouldn't say he was angry, but he was just like, come on, like this is it. Like, that's the moment. That's the one. That's the game-changing play. And for a young player to hear that, and that's going to come up in the team meeting. They're going to pull that clip and show that and be like, hey, man, like, way to click and close on this, but let's finish this play and get that ball out. And that either that's an incomplete pass or it's an interception or it's a fumble, like, let's make that happen for us. And I think, like, again, like one of the things that Kyle always did when I was in San Fran in 2017, 2016, whatever year that was, 18, gosh, they're all bleeding together now. But we'd pull clips from practice and be like, this should be a pick, this should be a fumble, this should be whatever. And you're like, oh, like, that's what we're doing. And it really makes you as an offensive player aware of it. As a defensive player, you're aware of it too. And I just thought that was, like, to your point, just a cool moment, good energy, positive. But hey, man, this is who we are. This is who we want to be. Let's make it happen. Yeah,
for sure. Any other guys you want to talk about? Anybody else? I mean, Jamin, again, playing out on the edge. I didn't see him work with the linebackers at all again today. There's a chance I missed something, but I feel like he's out on the edge now. And I can't say it's going great for him.
Yeah,
and it's
just one of those things.
It's hard, man.
It's really hard. And again, you've said this, and I agree. I like him as a mover. I like him, the way he moves, the way he gets off the football. he could probably do it. It's just, it's such a nuanced thing to do, and it's such a short window. Like today, he had like this really nice get off, and Coleman did a great job kind of covering up the angle. So it's like if this is the rusher, right, and the screen's the quarterback, the tackle just set right in front of it. So as a rusher, your job is to like get to an edge, figure something out. And Jamin, like you could just tell, his brain was like, "What do I do?" Like, and that's hard for rushers, and that takes a long time to cultivate that secondary reaction. So he ends up just running right into him. And Coleman does a great job. Everyone's talked about his balance and his feet, just settles it down, does a great job. But that to me shows, again, like the athleticism's there, the get-off's there, but it's it's like when you're playing jazz music, right? And you just can play, like it's not quite there for him yet, and it takes a long time to do that. And I think Coach Tapp, I've seen him kind of pull him off to the side. I've seen Ryan Kerrigan pull him off to the side, and I think they're coaching him and approaching him in the right way. You just got to feel it out in a way that is challenging to do. And again, they're doing the same thing with Jordan McGee, but Jordan McGee is also playing off-ball linebacker. So it's this really interesting situation for Jamin where they're like, we've identified your role, let's make it work, as opposed to McGee, who's got more irons in the fire, more flexibility, seemingly, for the defense.
And has a better contract. Like he was drafted by this year. Like he's worth investing in over time. Jamin is on the final year of his deal. So it's tough sledding for him. Having traits is not enough. There's been a lot of guys that have played a lot more football on the edge that have similar traits as Jamin Davis. I mean, Jamin's pretty special traits-wise, so at least have most of the traits of Jamin Davis. And they're not NFL edge rushers. And to do this at this point in his career is really, really hard. And again, like, we're talking about what we see here. I think both of us liked how Jamin finished the year last year at linebacker, but clearly they didn't see what they needed to continue with him there. They have other people. But then again, weird stuff happens in training camps, and who knows? So a long way to go, and we'll continue to talk about it as we get more data and everything plays out. So that's going to do it for our show today. Tuesday, more practice. Wednesday, off day. So Logan and I are going to take in practice on Tuesday, and then Wednesday morning, I think, is the plan to kind of recap it and see where we are after the first two padded practices. And then next week, more take command. Denton Day will be in for me while I am gone in Paris, headed to the Olympics with my wife. So that'll be a lot of fun. If you want to, actually, I'm not working at all. So I was gonna say, if you want to see tweets about people running in circles, go somewhere else, because I'm gonna go enjoy myself. But Take Command's not going anywhere. Denton is awesome. You guys know him from the Kevin Sheehan Show, and he'll be in with Logan, recapping the practices while I'm gone, and then we're back to it right after the preseason game. I'll be back for that, and Logan and I will do a recap show on the day after the Commanders open their preseason. So that's kind of what you can expect. So we'll see you Wednesday morning for another edition of Take Command. All right, that's all true, everything I just said. Speaking of Paris, we will discuss the U.S. men's basketball's very interesting start to the Olympic tournament against Serbia next. This is the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Back to Commanders camp at 6 p.m. with our Pick 6 at 6. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're 25 minutes from the Pick 6 at 6, where we'll give you the biggest Commander storylines of the day from training camp. You'll hear from Zach Ertz, Bobby Wagner, and Dan Quinn. And then Frankie Luvu, one-on-one at 6:30. Right now, though, we talk about the win for USA Basketball yesterday, Anthony. Did y'all watch this as you were partying in Miami?
Yes, we woke up bright and early, 11 a.m.
I see what you did there.
We woke up to watch the game for sure. That was like one of the things we actually had circled. We was like, we got to watch Team USA play. And we were able to do it.
Yeah.
We were stressed to start, though. We were stressed.
You and everybody else watching that was rooting for the red, white, and blue. So Serbia opens this game 10-2, I believe was the biggest the lead got there. And it was then kind of this like, oh boy, we're really doing this in a way that has felt all too familiar for USA Basketball, I think, these last couple of years. And then all of a sudden, the veterans on this team, and this is something that I've thought for a long time watching basketball. There is just something about the veteran, old head, whatever, guy that's still great, that still is going to show you, like, I'm better than you young cats if I really want to be. And I feel like we see this annually in the All-Star game. And, like, one of the guys who used to be awesome at this was Carmelo. It's like you'd have these younger guys, and let's say just by age, it was like Russell Westbrook. And Russell Westbrook's obviously a great player, and at that point in an everyday NBA game, you might have taken Russell Westbrook over Carmelo Anthony in, I don't know, let's call it 2015, right? Russ is still young. Carmelo's getting older, but like he's still kind of at the tail end of his prime. Actually, in 2015, I guess he's still kind of really in his prime. But they go to the All-Star game, and like Carmelo would still be able to score at will and do all the Carmelo stuff, and then Russell Westbrook's like running around like a crazy person, and you're like, oh, I actually think Carmelo Anthony's the better player, even if Russ might put up better stats night in, night out, whatever. And I'm just picking two random guys, but like that concept has been shown true time and time again. There's just something to veteran know-how and like the confidence to do it that allows in a moment of strife, in a moment of, a moment of tension for Kevin Durant to come in, LeBron James to come in, Steph Curry to come in, and those are the three that got them out of that mess. And Steph had the smallest impact of the three for sure, but he was the one who did it first. And like they come out of that timeout when they're down 10-2, Kerr calls timeout, and Steph hits a three. And it's kind of a classic Steph, like off the dribble, bop, 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 I'm going to dance, I'm going to hit you in the face with it, bang, three. And it's like, oh, they just went up a level. And then he took another one and he missed it, and Steph didn't wind up actually having a very good game, scoring-wise, when it mattered. But LeBron kind of then took it on his own of like, I'm going to dominate a stretch here. And then Durant came in and just lost his mind. And that's the part that's just not fair when it comes to the U.S. versus everybody else, is Kevin Durant can just come in and like he wakes up with 10 points, Anthony. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen, like in terms of scoring. And there's a reason that he is thought of the way he is. And on a team like this is actually the maximalist version of Durant. There's a reason why Durant won titles with the Warriors, and I think that he hasn't won one anywhere else, is because if he is truly your best player who has the full best player responsibilities for 40 minutes a night in the NBA, I don't know that he's up to that. But if you can condense down his offensive load to, hey, bro, shoot every time you touch it, and defensively, he can exert the kind of effort in 17 minutes that he did, he's still one of the 5 best players on the planet. And Durant just has an all-timer, 23 points in 17 minutes. He only missed one shot. He's 8 of 9 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, grabbed a couple of rebounds along the way. LeBron, 21 points, 9 assists, 7 boards. Curry, only has 11 points, but that one big three to pull the lid off was big. Embiid really struggled in this game. I feel like we should talk about that a little bit, just 4 points, but did play a lot better in the second half against Jokic, who had 20 points for Serbia. But I just think that the fact that on any given night, Anthony, and I don't have to pitch this to you as a LeBron guy, but the fact that LeBron James is still the best player on the planet when he wants to be is grotesque. He's 39 years old. That's not fair. And the fact that Kevin Durant, when he wants to be, is still the best scorer on the planet, and he's 7 years old or something like that, is also grotesque. And that's what those dudes were on whatever afternoon that was, Sunday morning.
Yeah, I couldn't believe what Kevin Durant actually did in, his 17 minutes, primarily just the first half, just because he hadn't played with this unit the entire exhibition series. So for him to come in, have the impact that he had, it was more so just him reminding everybody like he is, arguably the best scorer in the world. And it was on full display, the fact he was able to go 6 for 6. And it wasn't like he was hitting, wide open shots. These were highly contested. His first shot, his first touch, high hand in the face.
But it doesn't matter because he's 7 feet tall. And like that's the grotesque thing about it is like I think Kevin Durant is the most adaptable basketball player on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
There is not a team like even LeBron James. I think LeBron James molds everyone else to him, and because he's so good and he's so great that there's not a player on the planet who can't play with LeBron, right? But you can drop Kevin Durant into any existing basketball team on the planet, and that team instantly gets better with no practice. Because it's just like, hey, man, hit the shots you're supposed to hit. And Kevin's like, okay. Take the shots you're supposed to take. Okay. Attack the way you're supposed to attack. Okay. Hey, if it's late clock, we might need you to do something. Okay. He is the most adaptable offensive basketball player on the planet. And also because of his lateral quickness, his length, his shot blocking ability, and his rebounding ability, he fits in pretty much defensively flawlessly as well when he cranks it up on that end. And I will say, watching Kevin Durant defend like he defended on Sunday morning was different than watching, Durant and all these guys in the NBA because he's only going to do it for 17 minutes, basically an 8-minute stretch and a 9-minute stretch and not an entire 30-plus minutes for the Phoenix Suns. Like, it's just different, the level of effort you can give when that's all you're asked to do.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly just because of just how adaptable he is. Him, Steph Curry, I think those two guys is just like so selfless. That's why when they played together, they were able to, play off one another just because there were no egos. Everybody just, playing carefree basketball, just playing just to play. So, yeah, what KD was able to do, I think it was interesting to see, and I think we're going to get to it, Jason Tatum not getting any playing time. But I think having Drew, having Derek White, I think you need glue guys out there.
100%.
And I'm not saying, Tatum shouldn't have played at all. I think, that there were some minutes, they probably could have found for him. But I think a lot of people aren't giving Drew Holiday and Derek White the, love and appreciation that you need for some of these glue guys just because that's the role that they can, excel at and they're really good at.
No, I 1,000% agree. I think White and Holiday have to play because I think you need guys on the floor who you can rely on to do little stuff. And there's a bunch of dudes who aren't asked to do little stuff, and those guys are, and they're the best little stuff guys in the league, which is why they just won a title together in Boston on top of the great players that they play with. But they're going to enhance great players better than anybody else, arguably on the entire planet. And that is exactly why those guys need to basically be subbed in for each other and I'll always have one on the floor. Their switchability, the defensive hustle they bring, the organization they bring, kind of the point guard mind and mentality, even if they're helping organize from the dunker spot, like they're great. I do agree with you that like you got to find Tatum some minutes, but I also have a ton of respect for both Steve Kerr and Jason Tatum to be like, not every game is going to be like, maybe Durant sits out the next one. Maybe it's whoever, but like if you have a 12 guys to play in 40 minutes, that's not optimal because you need guys to be in the game long enough to feel the game and benefit from that. And so if you try to play 12 in 40, that's very different than trying to play 10 in 40. And so Steve Kerr has basically decided that barring foul trouble, I'm going to play 10 guys at a time. And he just kind of looked at his roster with Durant and the guys, and LeBron and the guys that he wanted to get minutes and was like, shoot, Jason, I'm sorry, bro, but like you're the odd guy out today. And what I'm very curious about is who's next, because I think that's where the Embiid discussion gets real funky is like, are they better off just playing LeBron and Durant and Bam as some kind of an AD, kind of that's your 5 rotation, playing some small ball with LeBron and Durant, but mostly Bam and AD. And like, as excited as I was for Embiid to pick the U.S. as the team that he would represent over France, when he ultimately made that decision and the Avengers assembled, it's tough. Like the post play in this FIBA rules with the 3-point line farther in and some of the things you can do zoning up and no defensive 3 seconds, like it's hard to be Joel Embiid in this stuff. And, you're kind of in the way of some other guys and the spaces they want to be on the floor where Bam, more of a distributor, AD, a little bit more skilled on the outside, and more mobile defensively. So, it's tough if you're facing Jokic, obviously. And I'm not saying Embiid's like a lost cause. I think you'll probably see a guy like Devin Booker, maybe even Anthony Edwards is like, hey, I know you're the young next guy, but like we're gonna let JT play this one, and you're gonna get the day off. Be ready just in case. But I think those are the 3 guys that I look at. And by the way, Booker, who started this game and was awesome and hit a bunch of threes early to also kind of help stem that early Serbian run. Like this is the problem: is if we agree, which you and I do at the very least, that White and Holiday are unbenchable, that they need to have them for kind of continuity, for glue, for the operation working at its maximum efficiency, then you're talking about one of these star-level players being the odd guy out. It was Tatum in the last game, along with Tyrese Halliburton, by the way, who also, why is Tyrese Halliburton not playing? He's incredible, but it's because of this. And you're talking about, at that point, Edwards, which feels insane, Booker, which feels insane, or playing a non-big, post guy, and Embiid doesn't wind up being out there.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I'm more so, I think those 3 guys that you named are definitely the guys that are, I guess, on that bubble. But I would definitely just lean more towards the Embiid side of things, just because of, I think the ball stops with Embiid. I think with everybody else, JT, Tyrese Halliburton, everybody else just moves the ball. When it gets to Joel Embiid, either he like stops the ball, he's turning it over, like it's just so tough, and he hasn't like fully adjusted to it just yet. But even when they went down 10-2, they subbed in AD. That's when they were able to get the run going. And
AD is a perfect FIBA player, and
Yeah.
Joel is an interesting FIBA player to try to work in. But I also feel like there's a game where he could drop 40 because he's Joel Embiid,
Yep.
and that's the problem. It's like, I also don't know that Joel Embiid's not the best player on the planet when he's at maximum efficiency. Dude scored 70 in a game this year.
Yeah.
He's Joel Embiid. You can really bench Joel Embiid? Like, that's the problem. But
I would hate to be, on Team USA heading those guys, just because it just.
Steve Kerr's the right guy to do it.
Yeah.
Great mentality, super respected. Champagne problems, for sure. All right, we get back the rest of the weekend in the Olympics, and then back to the Commanders at 6 o'clock with our Pick 6 at 6. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube if you'd like as well at the Team 980. Pick 6 at 6 coming up in just a few minutes, where we give you the biggest storylines from the day at Commanders Camp. Then 6:30, my chat with Frankie Luvu. And did you catch we haven't had a chance to talk since the opening ceremonies on Friday. Did you guys watch that? / did you watch that at all on Friday night?
So we watched it, but we didn't hear the audio. We saw the people coming on the boats. We saw people walking up with flames and torches, and we saw it, but we didn't hear.
So it was. I feel like most people didn't like it. And we were at a watch party with some family and friends, and then because it was so late, but like the primetime coverage, we wound up leaving and then eventually watching the second half of it. And we actually wound up watching, like, if you say it was 3 hours long, like we were able to watch the first hour. More people got there. We couldn't hear anything for the second hour, and we left before the third hour. So we wound up watching back like hour 2, hour 3 Saturday morning on our own TV with, the volume on and everything. And the more I watched it, the more it grew on me that I actually liked what they were trying to do. I just wonder what the hell happened with the broadcast. And obviously, they'll take away my degree if I don't say this. I have so much respect for Mike Tirico, who hosted the coverage. Mike is as prepared of a broadcaster as I've ever met, and I've known Mike since I was in college, hence they will take away my degree. Like, he's the ultimate Syracuse guy, et cetera, et cetera. But, like, I've legitimately known Mike since I was in college, and I don't know him well. We're not friends, but, like, one thing I do know about Mike Tirico is that dude prepares his you-know-what off. And that was the one thing that I took from him very, very early on about this business, and having talked to him just enough over the years to understand some of the things that he does to prepare for your average game call. I'm always amazed at the work that he puts in, and know that's why he was selected for this job, because Costas, who used to do the opening ceremonies and all the Olympic primetime coverage, like, he was known for his preparation for this. Costas would talk about how it was like a 4-year cycle of preparation, or a 2-year cycle, it was, I guess, multiple 4-year cycles, right? Because you have the Winter Olympics, and you start preparing for the next one as soon as those end. But you're already preparing for the summer games, and they just ramp up over each other on 2/4-year cycles. And that's while, in Mike's case, he's doing Sunday Night Football in the NFL, and he'll be doing the NBA now when NBC gets it in a couple of years. Long story short, like, I feel like the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, kept a lot of stuff secret, and thus left their broadcast partners wholly unprepared for that opening ceremony. It felt like they got a fact sheet beforehand, and that the kind of research and storytelling that typically goes into the opening ceremonies was not able to be delivered because they didn't have the pieces. And the IOC they talked about on the broadcast that the IOC was very secretive. Like, they never rehearsed any of this stuff, because you can't rehearse in the middle of Paris an Olympic opening ceremony. They rehearsed, I'm sure, in some sound stages somewhere, but it's not like they could go into Paris and be like, okay, this is how it's going to look. Nobody watch. You can't do that. You can do that when it's in a stadium, which is how typically those things are. But I think the plan of, like, hey, let's showcase this beautiful city. Let's showcase a city that is known for its architecture and has all these landmarks and is just unique and different in that way than even, a London, than a LA in 2028, than, anywhere else that's hosted the games. Like, Paris is such a unique city in that way. I like the idea. I think they failed on the broadcast. And then, poor Mike, he's stuck there with Kelly Clarkson and Peyton Manning, who gave just absolutely nothing. I like Kelly Clarkson. Her show is, I've watched a couple clips at times, like, can be pretty funny. She's super talented. She's awesome on The Voice. She's just like, this is cool. I'm happy I'm here. Thank you for having me. And I'm like, that's not the point. That's not the point of why you're here. I really don't know what that point is, but that's definitely not it. Gratitude is not what you want. From an expert, and then Peyton's like making everything a football analogy or like a basic sports analogy because he's Peyton Manning, and that's of course. And then he's got a couple of funny bits. He did the wristband bit that was funny, but like it's just I think NBC did not set themselves up for success, and I think the IOC didn't set NBC up for success, and thus what could have been a really cool opening ceremony with some mix of these cinematic things and French history and French culture and the city of Paris on display turned into a discombobulated, non-cohesive, not as good as it should have been. I don't want to say mess, but like left you wanting more.
Oh, that's not what I was, hoping to hear out of that. Dang, that's disappointing, Greg. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, like when you were watching it on mute, you weren't missing that much because there was some really cool stuff, like some of the historical figures they featured, and the music of different things. And that was another weird bit. Like Lady Gaga performed, and it was very cool, and she did a lot of stuff in French. But why was Lady Gaga performing? I don't know either. So I don't know. But that also did spawn some pretty funny memes of like, hey, if France did ultimately showcase a lot of French culture and French things. What is LA gonna look like? What is LA known for?
Maybe the beach and
movies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Music, entertainment.
Broadway, Hollywood.
I guess that here's what they should do for the
stars
LA.
are out.
Here's what they should do for the LA opening ceremonies. Redo the Super Bowl halftime show with Snoop and Dr. Dre. Add Kendrick in there.
Oh my gosh.
Flip off Canada because they not like us. And then what if Kendrick just bombarded out into the Coliseum and started performing They Not Like Us when Canada was going in the
That would be very messed up.
In the Parade of Nations. That would be
because now you're making your beef with the person.
A beef with the whole country?
Yeah. I don't know if you want those problems.
I don't think Kendrick would mind.
Oh.
doesn't seem. I mean, he already had the DeRozan line about Canada in that song.
True.
So he's kind of already.
Yeah. Taking a little jab.
We'll see where that beef is.
That would be a haymaker knockout.
Yeah. Anyway, it's fun to think about. All right. When we get back, it's our pick 6 at 6, the 6 biggest storylines from Commanders camp. Our football coverage on the Team 980 is presented by T-Mobile. Switch to T-Mobile and you can get tons of benefits and still save on every plan versus AT&T and Verizon. Use their savings calculator to find out how at T-Mobile.com/switch. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And at 6 o'clock, we are catching you up on the biggest Commander storylines of the day with our Pick 6 at 6.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
We set out to find a leader, someone who could take this franchise to the next level, build an elite team that consistently competes for championships.
All right, day one of padded practice for the Commanders today. And the biggest thing it continues to be for me just kind of the very smart way that they're going about all of this with the structure.
Number 1.
So today, practice was shorter than it has been because they were in pads. So they ramped up without pads, took a day, had another reacclimation day, pads, and then tomorrow they'll be in pads again before an off day on Wednesday. They will continue to grind. But I think it's one thing that I just firmly believe about physical training of any kind is freshness is better. Getting quality work is better. Yes, will you increase stamina and stuff over time? And do you need time on task? And is there a toughness element and all these things? Yes. But what actually helps you become the best athlete you can of any kind, football is certainly not excluded here, is getting quality work. And Dan Quinn has continued to find out what it is that he needs to do to set up practice and get quality work. And they are getting that every single day out in Ashburn. Quinn talked about that and how he's kind of using his experience as a head coach before and the different experience he's had to set his team up for success.
Honestly, I think I study film a little bit better.
That is not what I wanted. It's this one that I wanted.
It's definitely collaborative, but I think you want to make sure if you work back all the things you want to start at the end, what do you want to get done? You have to start working back. How many practices of this? How many 2 minutes do we need? How many shots at goal line to get the team ready, in September? So you do have to go through the whole process. And as you're learning players and what they can and can't do, you may put in a defense or an offense or a scheme that you think is going to be there. No, that didn't work. And so not all the ones or ideas that you do go. But then there's also some ones that say, okay, let's do more of that. And so that usually happens 10 days from now after we get through about 8 or 9 practices of installing the offense, the defense, and the special teams. Then you can kind of go back and start reviewing it again.
So ultimately what you're doing is you are using the first week and change to get the basic fundamentals, the floor underneath you. You see how your players handle that. You see, maybe learn some things about your players. And then you adjust from there, and everything goes from general to specific. And when you get into the season, it becomes even more specific because now all of a sudden you're game planning for an opponent. And so without that, everything is super general. You're not necessarily even started to fully shape-shift your offense, your defense for your own team to maximize their strengths because you don't know them all yet. That is part of why you have to kind of start from this baseline every single year. But especially when you have the roster turnover and a new staff and a lack of understanding of your guys in the way that Quinn and his staff do. They watch them all on tape. They like them. There's a reason that they're here. But you just learn more being with them on the practice field every single day. You unlock certain things, the do's and the don'ts for each guy. So I thought that was a really interesting answer from Quinn. And it also kind of shows the thought that goes into the periodization of, well, we know we need, I'm making this number up, 100 red zone snaps or 200 red zone snaps or 50 red zone snaps, whatever the number actually is. We need to make sure that we have the space in the program to get them. So in some ways, you have to pre-plan everything, the entirety of training camp, but you just have to then be willing to be flexible with it in the back half. All right, number two. The thing that I took away from Jaden Daniels today, actually, I will give credit where credit is due, and that is to our colleague, Toby Altizer. Toby and I were talking on the sideline as we watched practice today, and Toby made a remark that was basically like, he just always kind of figures it out, talking about Jaden Daniels. And I said, you want to know what? I think the thing that makes it so nice to watch Jaden practice is he just makes the layups. And how often, and this is like coming in a period, it might have even been the 2-point play period, where he just hits a wide open guy. And you're like, well, that was drama free. That was great. We absolutely love to see completions to wide open receivers. But we know in the NFL that doesn't happen, and it especially doesn't happen all the time with guys who aren't the greats. The greats just don't miss that. The Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings, the Drew Breeses, like they just hit the open guy with extreme regularity. And if Jaden can just do that, that's going to get him a 10-year career. And then, God forbid, he can do the crazy special stuff that we're pretty sure he's capable of as a runner and as a passer, where he's got great anticipation, he's got great feet, he's got great eyes. But that accuracy to just understand where the ball's supposed to go, especially on plays where guys might bust wide open. Get your feet in the right place, be calm, and deliver a sound mechanical throw. It's not sexy, it's not exciting, except for when it results in touchdowns, and it did multiple times today. And I think that ability to just hit freaking layups is so refreshing to watch. And Zach Ertz talked about it after practice. Today, the veteran tight end seen quite a bit. So what does he make of his new quarterback?
I mean, I think Jaden has done a phenomenal job. I've been impressed with him from the moment he got here. And the reps, like I said, are limited. And so every time we have a rep, I kind of want to stand back there and talk to him kind of how he sees certain things, because it doesn't really matter how I see things once the ball's snapped. I got to play on his timing, and I got to anticipate what he wants me to do. So I can't just go out there and do whatever I want to do every play. So we're really trying to hone in on the details and maximize the reps we have together, because he's not always with the ones, and knowing that Marcus is doing a phenomenal job as well. But with Jaden, I really just try and communicate really to all the quarterbacks kind of what I see and if they want me to do anything different versus certain coverages. Because, the play is called one thing, but there's very minor details that need to be accounted for on every route.
I was impressed when Ertz was with us on Take Command and how he talked about that with Daniels and something similar to what he said at the beginning there, which is how I see it doesn't necessarily matter. And that's not to say that he's not going to go to Jaden and be like, hey, I saw this, I think we should do that. Or what do you think about this? Because I saw it this way. And Jaden might be like, oh, yeah, that's good. You're very good at this. No wonder you've been playing for 12 years. Sometimes Jaden's going to be like, no, I didn't see it that way. Can you do this? And Zach's going to go, yes, every single time. And that's part of what it means to be quarterback friendly. Are you adaptable enough as a player to adjust to someone else? And are you adjustable enough as a receiver to adjust to your quarterback, no matter who that quarterback is? And I think that's part of what has made Ertz special. And even just having that realization and that self-awareness is special. And it's something that Ertz definitely has and has already developed that relationship to have that communication with Jaden Daniels. Speaking of the layups, though, and Daniels hitting them.
Number 3.
In order to hit layups, you have to generate layups. And it seems like Cliff Kingsbury is very, very good at creating layups. This is kind of Cliff's reputation, right? As he makes it nice and clean for his quarterback. He gets his guys open. When we talked to Ertz about Cliff on Take Command last week, he said that, I loved playing for Cliff because he just knows how to get his guys open. The ball gets to the right place. Like it is a very player-friendly offense that works time in, time out at college and really was pretty darn good in Arizona until they got beaten like crazy with injuries his final year there. But he has found a way no matter where he is, and now he's just got to focus on offense, and he's got all this experience as opposed to being a head coach. And it seems to have just unlocked an even higher level of Cliff Kingsbury. Some of the stuff that he's doing right now, I know Logan has been really, really impressed with schematically. And just from a pure results standpoint, any of us that are out there can see it. You don't need to have played 10 years in the league like Logan did, or be able to be watching on the cameras and capture the all-22. Like, dudes are wide open with some regularity. That's a good thing. And Cliff is certainly enjoying himself. It's fun to actually watch him coach. And Ertz, who was with Cliff in Arizona, talked about that today when he was asked at the podium about kind of what he's seen with Cliff as an offensive coordinator now versus when he was the head coach back at AZ.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Cliff so happy. He seems like he's refreshed. Every time he goes out to the practice field, he's eager. He's excited to work with the quarterbacks every single day. He's putting them through individual every single day. And so I truly believe that maybe that break from everything last year and him able to get this job and work with Jaden and Marcus and Sam and Jeff every day has really almost rejuvenated him. And I think I'm in the same boat. It's been extremely fun to be here. I feel almost like I've gotten younger since I got out here just because how much fun I'm having every day. And so I think Cliff and I are kind of in the same boat in that regard.
Just two dudes out there having a good old time. It is fun to watch Cliff operate that way. I do wonder, and I'm sure we'll get the chance to talk to Cliff later in camp. He'll do a podium session. Typically the coordinators do. Like, is he always just going to work with the quarterbacks? Is he going to be that involved day in, day out? Or is he eventually going to bop around a little bit, be with some other position groups? But that's his background. And that's something that I actually really respect about whether it's position coaches becoming coordinators, coordinators becoming head coaches. What I don't want my head coach to do is lose the thing that got him the head coaching job. And so if I have Kevin O'Connell or Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, and they're these wizard offensive coordinator types, Mike McDaniel, like, I don't want you to give that up. If you're D'Amico Ryans or Raheem Morris, I don't want you to give up defensive play calling necessarily. It's something I talked about with Quinn. Like, I think Joe Witt Jr. is going to do a great job, but I would have loved to see DQ keep the defensive play calling because he's really special at it, and he's got years and years of experience proving that. And if things go sideways as a play caller, I think, obviously DQ trusts Joe Witt to install, and Joe's doing a tremendous job. But if eventually things go sideways, or who knows, maybe Joe does such an outstanding job that he gets a head coaching gig, and Joe Witt Jr. is not here in 2 years. And would DQ then maybe take over the play calling if the next guy up isn't quite ready to call plays or has a little less experience and maybe just wants to be a coordinator first and not have to worry about it on game day? Learn, take a year. That's all on the table, I think. But I think for Cliff, he is so well known for his quarterback skills and so well respected for what he does with quarterbacks. It would be not maximizing his abilities as a coordinator to not be in with those guys. But I think to get back to the original point I wanted to make of today's Pick 6, which is Cliff generates layups. Schematically, he is incredibly flexible, and that allows him to find and take inspiration from a lot of different offenses, and he's doing a really good job of teaching those things to the players, that they are executing them to the level that they are working to bust guys wide open, especially in the red zone. And I know the red zone right now installed defensively is a little light. They don't necessarily have the right answers in place yet. That is just a reality of the chronology of camp, not some indictment of Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn and everybody else on that side of the ball. But it is fun to see Cliff, against some of the things that other teams will play in the regular season coverage-wise, have these answers teed up, ready to go, and executed already at a high level. All right, continuing on, our Pick 6 at 6, the
Number
six
4
biggest storylines of the day. Just a quick note, no soundbite on this one, but number 4 is we saw today on one play, it's all you needed, why it is, I don't want to call it a problem, but limiting if Cornelius Lucas winds up being the starting left tackle or the starting right tackle here in 2024. There was a swing pass. I don't think it was I guess technically it was a screen. It was kind of like a one-man screen swing situation where Big Luke gets out in space and he's trying to block Jeremy Chin. And Chin's a obviously tremendous pursuer of the football. He's good at shedding blocks, all that kind of stuff. But you just see Cornelius Lucas out in space does not have the athleticism to be a starting left tackle. Lucas is a drop back pass blocker. Ironically, exactly what they needed last year when they had Eric Bieniemy calling a zillion drop back passes every game. But Cornelius Lucas in a straight drop back situation, he's so big, he's so wide, he's got good feet in that particular area, got a good punch. His technique can obviously use a little bit of work. There's a reason he's been a backup, but he's pretty good at that. You get him out in space, you try to pull, you try to run stuff behind him, the screen game. You can't do that stuff behind him. And so it's why the next thing I'm about to talk about becomes so important.
Number 5.
today was a mixed day for Brandon Coleman, but he really showed some progress and showed some ability at left tackle. And he played some right tackle as well. We saw some of that. But he showed an ability to, hold a line, to be quick. I think you also get to see some more of his power. One of the things about being in pads is there's a bigger surface area for both players in an engagement, if you will, a hand fight, a battle. There's more surface area to strike and grab. And so you can control, as an offensive lineman, more of what the D lineman wants to do. And also, because there's more surface area and you're just a bigger human, if you have some of these quicker pass rushers, a guy like Deron Payne and John Allen can actually take advantage of this in a great way because they're so slithery and they're so quick. And so without pads, they can just squeeze through these tight little spaces, dip a shoulder down and get through. You can't do that in football pads. Not when the gaps are smaller, because shoulder pad, if the O-line is shoulder to shoulder, there's less space because now there's 2 extra inches of pads there and you become 2 inches bigger. And so I think what you see is the balance and some of the traits that really are fantastic about Brandon Coleman start to shine a little bit more with pads on, and some of the feel stuff too. This is a guy that did play over 1,000 snaps at tackle in college, and you're starting to see some of that. As for what Dan Quinn has seen from Brandon Coleman so far, here's the head coach before practice today.
One of the things I knew he was a very good athlete, but what I have been more impressed by, even he's got great balance for a big guy, and so he's got power in his legs, so one foot coming back, redirecting on pass rush stunts that could go. So that might be one of the things I didn't know was really one of his strengths. I knew he was a good athlete and movements and that, but balance is a harder thing to test. You have to see it, and so he is very rarely somebody that's out of position or on the ground. He's very deliberate in the way he moves and practices. So I think he's a very in-control player, and I think that's a real attribute as an offensive lineman. You never see him overextended or out of position, because when you do get beat, usually somebody's out of position. It's hard to recover. He has that ability to stay connected to somebody, and that's one of the things I've been impressed by so far.
To not show that as a young player when the speed of the game has increased is really impressive. And we'll see if Brandon Coleman can continue that through the rest of training camp and hopefully as a 10-year veteran left tackle for the old Washington Commanders. Last but not least, speaking of veterans.
Number 6.
Obviously, this was a story today with Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, perhaps the two most known additions for veteran leadership that were brought in. Of course, both guys can still play, but we know a huge reason why those guys were brought in is to be tone setters on their respective sides of the ball, the histories they have with the coaches, Bobby with DQ, and obviously he wanted to play with Ken Norton as well, and then Zach with Cliff. And so what's it been like to be together? What's it been like to play with that around? I talked to Frankie Luvu about that a little bit in the interview that you'll hear next here on the Team 980, but Ertz talked about it as well after practice.
Yeah, I think at this point in my career, there's really not a coverage that I haven't seen. And so when I was young, the game is a lot faster than it is now. You feel like the guys are moving a lot faster than they are now. But I'm also able to play almost a step ahead or 2 steps ahead because I understand what the defense is trying to do. So if they're playing a certain coverage, I want to attack where they're vulnerable. And maybe when I was younger, it took me a few steps into the route to really see what they were going to do on a certain play. But now I can pretty much understand what they're trying to do pre-snap. So I'm almost 2 steps ahead than when I was younger because I had to react versus now I can anticipate. And obviously the red zone third down, game on the line are situations that I've always wanted to excel in. I feel like I've done that throughout my career, and it comes with a lot of trust from the coaches and the quarterbacks. But I take a lot of pride in that area as well.
If you want a lot more detail on that, make sure you check out Zach with me and Logan on Take Command. Logan really peeled back the layers of that onion on an incredibly nerdy level on terms of what Zach is looking for and what he means when he talks about having that extra step, that extra 2 steps ahead and seeing those things and what he was reading. Really good stuff and really good job by Logan on our pod to unpack that with Ertz. That was from last Tuesday's show, which we actually published that interview as a solo episode. Wagner talked about his experience as well as he got his press conference started today.
Honestly, I think I study film a little bit better. I think I'm more productive in my study time. I think that's helped me kind of last. I think that's like the people that I talk to, a lot of the older guys that last a long time, they said lean on your film study because that's going to help you keep faster. So I would say that's something I focus on.
If you can, slow down a step athletically but gain 2 in the film room, that's still one step faster. And Bobby Wagner is certainly a guy that lived that last year, leading the NFL in tackles. You're going to be excited to see what he can do this year in D.C. Talk to Frankie Luvu about Wagner and so much more. A can't-miss interview next with perhaps the Commanders' most important non-Jaden Daniels edition of the offseason. Frankie Luvu and I one-on-one after practice next on the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. right. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And after practice today, got the chance to catch up with new commander Frankie Luvu. And some of you have been waiting 2.5 hours for this. Here's that conversation. All right, with Frankie Luvu, after the first day of padded practice, how'd it feel to get the pads back on? It was a little bit shorter session, but I'm sure it felt good to feel like a full football player again.
Oh, yeah, man. You know, it's good to get the pads in, get a little hit here and there, man, get the jitters out, you know. But no, it was a good first day, man. So, you know, looking forward to be moving forward with it.
One thing that I think's been interesting to talk to so many of your teammates about is the camaraderie, not just amongst position groups, but amongst the entire team.
Right.
And I always think of all the training camps that I've covered where there's fights and, like, dudes are going to get feisty. This part of football. It's hot. Y'all are hitting each other.
Right.
But does it feel different going into these padded practices in terms of the offense, defense, the closeness, once you get out there, that like your person differently than maybe you did in the past in other places?
Man, I think that the biggest thing for us when we come out here, I think the main thing is to compete, but compete at a level where I'm getting my team from lens is like getting me better. So there's like, yes, there's gonna be fights at every training camp, but then, you know, we cut it off then, we move. It's just, you know, dogs just being, you know, you put a lot of us in one room, man. I feel like everybody's up here. So, like, for us to come out here and have that level of accountability and our standards, and, you know, we can step off the field, everybody's healthy, even though we got the work in, and that's what we want to do when we step off the field.
Are there particular guys that maybe outside of your position group that you've gotten close with over these last couple of months through the spring and then early on here in the summer?
Yeah, man. I mean, pretty much my linebacker core, I'll be with them. A D-line, I'll say Pitt, my dog. You know, we see in the special teams, Bobby. You know, and a lot of the coaching staff, Ken Norton and George, man, they've been doing a good job. And pretty much everybody, man. You know, I feel like spring was like really quick. It happened so quick. We didn't get to, you know, see each other eye to eye every day, but man, now we out here, you know, we building that team bonding and moving forward from that.
I'm sure you've been asked a version of this question a million times, so I'm just ask it again. But playing with Bobby, a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame, the knowledge that he has, was there something that you did not expect? Because, like, I'm sure you were like, oh, he's going to see the game, great. There's going to be stuff that you're like, I'm excited to experience this thing that you were looking forward to. Is there something that you weren't looking forward to that has popped up that you, like, didn't know what you didn't know about playing with a guy who's got that kind of brain and that many years under his belt?
I just think I didn't, you know, little things, you know, coming from running backs, depth, you know, his body language and things he tells where his pass and run, man, I feel like that's a huge thing out of him. And then just like his practice habits, you know, he's not a very vocal, like, rah-rah guy, but he's more leaded by action, you know, and I think a lot of us, you know, follow that, and a lot of everybody kind of like bought into that. So this thing for me, just seeing him, how he works, come out every day, and you know, not everything is very intentional with him, you know, his steps. So little techniques and fundamentals off of how his game is, and I kind of take that.
Frankie Luvu here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Intentionality keeps coming up. We talked to Tap in the spring. He used that word a lot. DQ's used that word a lot. Can you give us maybe a story, an example of something that was intentional in a way that's different than whether it was what you experienced in New York, Carolina, high school, college, whatever it is, just something that really kind of embodies that word?
I think the togetherness, that's very intentional. You know, a lot of teams, like especially this year, we got a lot of new guys, you know, from the bottom to the top, coaching staff, you know, so to see everybody bought in and intentionally wanting to win, and that's the main goal. It's like you don't see that everywhere. You know, coming from the Jets in Carolina, you know, we preached about it, but we never really lived about it. And you know, as my time here so far, man, there's nothing but intention. Everything that we do, you know, meeting rooms, on the field, how we looked after our bodies, and you know, just get 1% better.
There is space for you. What's it been like having Chin here with you throughout this process?
Oh man, Chin, man, I was happy when we got him. So I was like, man, I know what he's like, and I know what he can do to help this team. So to have him on the team, man, and just have him right behind me, it's like, man, I feel like we're going to go everywhere we go, you know what I mean? But Chin, man, he's one of them players, a high-energy guy, man, just going to put his pads on somebody, and he's not scared to come down in the box and, like, you know, to feel his presence, you know. So, man, I'm just super excited to work with Chin, and especially, man, everybody that's here. So, yeah.
For you, we all, I think, on the outside are anticipating this mixed role of some pass rush, wherever that comes from, obviously playing in coverage, traditional off-ball linebacker stuff. What's it been like for you to kind of expand your game and build? And I'm sure it's still early in the process, but what's it been like to build the Frankie Luvu position on this team?
Oh, man, it's fun. They got me off the edge, got me off the ball, got me lined up at the field, got me on special teams, man. I take all that, take advantage of most opportunities I get, man. So I came off with special teams, and then that kind of build my brand of, go about, because I feel that's the two offense and defense is in that core. But having that positions and putting me in those scenarios, man, I like it. I want them to put as much on my plate and see me perform and make plays out there. So that's why I came here to do, and that's the reason why I came here. And just, team environment of winning dogs and some BMF, some bad mother, what. You know what I mean?
Thanks for making me not that.
Yeah, nah, you got it.
I always like to, in these interviews and this time of year, get to let fans know you guys off the field a little bit. So real quick, I was reading that you have a lot of rugby players in your family. Is that how you kind of started and then transitioned? What's kind of the transition for you?
My pops, he played rugby, but a lot of us kind of played it. Back in Samoa, you got to pick up games, after you do your chores and everything. So that was kind of like, the game back then. But man, two of my brothers, they played. And then, a lot of us, I'm the youngest out of 8. I got one sister, all boys. And, in that household, it was a lot of, competitiveness. And we all played soccer growing up, and then rugby was kind of there. And, just pretty much our parents decided, go do this, do that.
So how'd you find American football?
Man, so one of the coaches back in was coaching at Washington State with Mike Leach at the moment. His name is Coach Joe Salavia, and he's also from the islands as well, from American Samoa. And he had a bunch of guys that he came recruiting at the time. And so every year he came down and visit to recruit kids. There was like a huge poly pipeline coming, so he had like a whole roster coming in. So I was kind of blessed that he came and recruit a lot of us, and even to this day I kind of thank him, him and Mike Leach and the whole Washington State organization for giving me an opportunity. Kids from the island, man. There's a lot of talent out there, but I don't think we have enough resources to get back to the islands and see what the talent we got back there, man. Because we got some, people, to.
Are there any others that have made it to the NFL?
Yes, there's a man. Daniel Ekwala, he plays for the Patriots. And then Jesse Sapolu was on with Troy. He came back down. Troy Polamalu came back down to Samoa my senior year, and he threw a huge camp. I think he opened up eyes for Samoa the talent. I think that's what kind of, when he brought that camp, I want to do. Get back to the man, and for him to do that, I feel like I got a shot, So from there on out, I want to do it so somebody else can be where I'm standing here today. So just kind of, exposing our talents back home, man, and seeing that we do got talent, and go from there.
That's awesome. I can't think of a better way to wrap it. Appreciate your time, Frankie.
Bro, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Today here on the Team 980, we get back, we wrap up the show with real things real people said into real microphones. It's Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. I will quickly mention, so I'm off to Paris on Thursday. Linnell, I believe, is in for most of the time, if not all the time that I am out. And just the way that our stream works and the fact that I operate a large part of it means that the show will not be on YouTube while I am out. So sincere apologies to the YouTube audience. But the good news is if you have YouTube, Anthony, it means you have the internet. And if you have the internet, whether you watch us on your phone or on your laptop, on your tablet, whatever it is, all those devices also connected to the internet, and that you can listen to the show with Linnell at theteam980.com or on the Odyssey app. So just because I'm out and we're not on YouTube doesn't mean that those of you that can't listen to the show on the radio because you either don't have a radio in your house or you're not in your car when you listen, doesn't mean you can't enjoy the show. You just won't be able to watch it while I'm out. But then it'll come back when I'm back. So that's fine. Somewhere in here, there's a joke about you not having to look at Linnell, but we're not going to make that joke.
I think the joke still hit.
Sometimes it be like that. Anthony, what is the best part of the show today in your mind? If folks, speaking of, using their internet devices to listen to us, you can listen to any part of the show on your time on demand via the Hoffman Show podcast, and you search the Hoffman Show in your podcast app, and voila, there it is. And you can hear things like, what do you think was the best part of the show today?
Can I be selfish?
Yes.
I would definitely probably say my recap in Miami.
I think you're right.
Just because, I'm still in like vacation mode. I'm still like,
just so we're clear, Anthony's suitcase is here.
I'm moving in, Craig.
You are. Are moving in here? Or are you moving in with me? Are you coming back to my crib and moving in with me?
I didn't know I had the invitation to move into there, but
I'd have to check with my wife, but she is a big Anthony fan.
All right, there it is then.
We got an air mattress.
Yes,
you have
sir.
your own room. We just haven't put a real bed in that room yet. So we just got to blow up the air mattress.
That's fair.
But yeah, no. Do we have a clip of that by any chance, or we did not get to pull a clip of your story?
I did not, but tomorrow I got you.
Okay. Today, you just have to go to the podcast and check out Anthony's in full recapping his trip to Miami, including telling a story where they sussed out that one of his boys can't swim.
Yeah, that was the biggest takeaway. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and to more memories and moments and experiences, I guess, as we age. We're still not,
Yeah, never stop learning.
Nope.
Including your boy Ness on how to swim. All right, it's time for real things to end the show.
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5 and 11. Not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, USA Basketball providing all kinds of great sound clips. This is from late last week. We never got a chance to play it, but very much wanted to. Who's got the best nickname on Team USA?
Best nickname on the team? No, it ain't the Browns. It's a time for me. King James and Chef Curry.
King James is elite. Chef Curry elite. D. White, yeah, does that count? That's like saying Book is a nickname.
That's not a real nick. That's just your name shortened.
Bam Monte. Bam Monte. So the last Olympics, JaVale McGee asked him what his real name was. He was like, it's probably Bam Monte or something.
What's his real name?
Bam.
You think JT knows it?
I know his social security number, middle name, the Idris.
Who has the best nickname on this team? Best nickname on the team.
The Process. He put in a group chat and announced himself as The Process.
King James, probably. Enough said.
Drew Holiday needs a nickname.
What's it going to be?
I'm not creative. That's why I'm asking the people.
Slim Reaper, Chef. You call him Reaper?
I call him Easy Money. Tarantula was talked to.
A lot of guys said you.
Slim Reaper. I love that nickname. Before, I didn't think I was worthy enough for him. I ain't do enough yet. Now?
I think we might have actually played that clip on Friday, Ant, when you were out.
Oh.
Which is my fault for not remembering because you weren't here.
Yeah.
But Slim Reaper Durant used to be like, don't call me that.
Yeah.
I hate it. And now to know that it was just because he didn't think he earned it, he ruined a great nickname because everyone stopped calling him. Slim Reaper is awesome.
Slim Reaper, Easy Money Sniper, Durant. He actually has too many nicknames, to be honest.
Yeah, he might have like 3 of the 4 best nicknames.
Yeah.
With King James is like, come on. To be crowned at 16 and then live up to it?
Yeah.
Damn. By the way, do you know Bam's actual real name?
Bam?
Idris Femi Adebayo.
Bam. Oh, snap. One more time, Craig. One more time.
Idris Femi Adebayo.
Bam.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what Wikipedia says.
There's a lot of people who have crazy nicknames. I mean, their nicknames actually have nothing to do with their full name. Like Debo Samuels. You know his full name?
Isn't Tyus?
Yes, it's something crazy. CD Lamb has a crazy name.
I didn't know CD was.
I'm not gonna say they have crazy names. They have very unique names.
Now what's CD Lamb? Now I gotta look these up. Cedarian DeLeon. No, that's CD. Cedarian DeLeon.
Yeah, but you just
said it has nothing to do with it.
All right, that's fair.
Debo's named after Debo from Friday.
Yeah, his name is like
Tyshawn, not Tyus.
Yeah, Tyshawn.
Which we saw because his kid is Tyshawn Jr.
Yeah. Who else has some crazy names? There's like a list of like NFL players. DK Metcalf, I forgot his.
I know you keep giving me guys, and I'm running out of time. I can't type that fast.
Oh, my bad.
That's our show. Tomorrow, Anthony might be out of vacation mode. You have to tune in to find out. We'll see you tomorrow.